Sahana Bhavatu, Sahano Bhunaktu, Sahaviryan Karavavahe, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The subject matter is the distinction between you and abhyasa, right? Abhyasa is what is a superimposition. What happens is the individual comes into this world and they're unable to distinctly identify, right, what is my real nature. And there's a reason for this. This is what we call ignorance, right? So no one gets born and they say, I know who I am, and therefore I don't need to kind of, seek things in this world and any of these other things. So the question is then, why do we seek, right? Just to seek in this world implies that the seeker is trying to find something. Now, you're always trying to find something to what? To suffer or to gain some fulfillment. So if the nature of you, the drg, from which the entire universe comes, is already full, and that one is seeking to fill themselves up, then that implies that, right, not only was I born with an ignorant notion that I am full, but also I haven't resolved how is it that right now, we're speaking of, there is a presence which is, right, without any limitations, a presence that is, whole and complete right in this moment. We're not speaking about kind of like what the rishis experience or what the Buddha is experienced. We're not interested. We're talking about you right now, because we said consciousness is unborn. So whatever consciousness was, obtaining in Buddha's mind is the same consciousness that's obtaining in our mind right now. So this is the thing to understand, is there's nothing, special or non-special about anyone here. No one's kind of had this, enlightened, wonderful state of consciousness, and I'm like, oh, they're over there, and I'm a little person over here to, one day, one hopeful day, I'm going to get that. This is not the thinking that we have in Advaita Vedanta. We're just bringing out a reality from which this entire universe comes, and that reality happens to be you in this moment. Issue is the world puts their I in the drg, and so their drg becomes the mind. And in neuroscience, this happens quite frequently. So they will say, I am, consciousness is in the brain, right? So this brain is drsya, right? It's something that you can see under a microscope, you can observe it. And where is consciousness, which is another object that they can see? Look at this. So there's two things. The brain is turned into a drsya, and consciousness, which we said you cannot objectify, that's also turned into a drsya, and therefore I want to put one drsya is found in another drsya. So not only is the attribution era, consciousness is put inside the mind, but also the second era is they're both becoming drshyas. So it's a two era that's being done here. And so when it comes to discerning, we want to bring out what specifically is consciousness. And we said that it is not born, therefore it can never end. And therefore, if it's unborn, then you cannot ever find consciousness, right, in someone's brain. Because that implies, let me kind of pick your brain, and I'm going to find in the, the pineal gland, an area where consciousness is, as if it's your consciousness, right? So I'm going to find your consciousness. But in reality, consciousness is also obtaining in that very scientist who's having these thoughts about trying to discover consciousness. You see? So it is not born, therefore it can never end. And also, because it is not born, nobody owns and no one can claim it as mine, as my individual consciousness. Because the individual is born, and yet consciousness is not born, okay? So this is the first thing to understand. And we also said important is that because it is not born, it means that it's never going to start, because it's already here right now. So I'm never going to start being conscious. I'm already conscious right now. And what the scriptures bring out is that consciousness is the final truth of all things. And that recognition is what we call liberation, okay? So this means liberation is not in the future. It's nowhere to be found in, I'm going to get liberated tomorrow. It's just understanding what lights up my mind, my drshya, is that which cannot be, objectified. And there's no point trying to objectify it, because it is that which is the always the subject, always behind the form which I'm trying to objectify. Even to say consciousness is an object, right? In the presence of drk, that thought came to light. That thought lit up because of that which cannot be objectified. Okay? So now trying to turn it and go, yeah, but what about, yeah, so you throw objections now. Why are the objections being thrown? Because our orientations since childhood has always been to turn everything into an object. This is how we taught. This is how we learned. Whatever it is that you want in life, just visualize it, put it inside your mind as an image, and then work on it, turn it into an affirmation. I'm love, I'm consciousness, right? I'm awareness, aham brahmanasmi, right? All of this is this attribution era of trying to turn it into a drshya. And so the heart of this teaching is, the error that gets made is that you simply cannot ever turn drk into a drshya. This is a fact. So then if you can't turn drk into a drshya, what's the solution? What do you do then? Careful, what do you do then? Even if you try to do something, that is also an action that is a drshya. You understand? So no matter however you argue this out, there's always a witness in whose presence there's an attempt to try to grasp that which cannot be grasped. So there's no point trying to grasp it, because in its presence there is an attempt, there is knowledge that there is someone who's trying to grasp it. And then na astam eti esha. So we will speak about why it seems like when your body moves, you, consciousness, are moving. We will provide a metaphor very soon for this. But as we said in the last session, there's some examples of this where, you can have your body is still in one place, and yet your mind's daydreaming. It's going on a tangent. It's going somewhere else. So we can also have an example of you're in the train, and the train's not moving, but the train next to you is moving. And so it seems like your train is moving. So it gives you this sort of an illusion that, right, I am moving. So we would talk about why this happens when we get to Maya, right? This is another teaching that has to be looked into. And then na vrthim yati. Now vrithi in Sanskrit means to grow, okay? So so it does not grow. It does not expand. Look at this. Consciousness does not ever expand. And how many times have you heard, let's raise my levels of consciousness. Let's raise my levels of awareness. Let's expand my consciousness. It is that which is already ever expanded. It is already that which is all pervasive. If it's all pervasive, then by definition, there's no question of trying to, or attempting to, or coming to be successful at making it larger. So you will never experience yourself having a higher level of consciousness than the very consciousness that you're enjoying right now. This is an idea in the mind. An idea in the mind says there's a better consciousness than this one, and that idea again gets passed on to the drk, right? So then we live in this sort of idea that, my consciousness can be huge, can be great. The Buddha's consciousness is, Ramana's consciousness is huge, and mine is a small consciousness. It's ever all pervasive and all expanded already right now. So this is not a question of trying to make consciousness anything. It's only coming to accept, acknowledge that it is already in its state as it is. And you can't do anything about it, because the nature of it is it's all pervasive. And if it's all pervasive, then wherever I go to the Himalaya, let me go to the Himalaya and meditate. Maybe I'll find the truth over there. What's the difference between there and a toilet? right? No difference. It sounds like a silly question, but really there's no difference. In the bathroom, there is a Drsya, a person, and we have a nice picture there. Look at this. So we have here, right, this is a symbol for all pervasive consciousness, this sun. So in all pervasive consciousness, there is a person called your name who is imagining, right, imagining this entire universe, and this imagination is keeping with the reality, okay? Because this is an actual, when we talk about Maya, the projecting power, so this is an actual scriptural symbol of how creation comes. So for the wise person, they understand, because not only do they have the knowledge keeping with the reality, but they also understand the only reason why I'm able to be conscious of this knowledge, which is keeping with the reality, is because of myself. You understand this? Because of that which lights up this person's mind, lights up this person's memory, lights up their cognitive skills, lights up their emotional capacities. Not because I'm making it, not because I, the little individual, is making it, because it is already true. It lights up all of my personal attempts to understand the reality. So even if you understand the reality, why is there understanding of reality? Because reality understanding, that's still Drsya. What lights up that understanding? Drg. Suppose your understanding of reality is not aligned with the reality. That is Drsya. What lights that up? Drg. However, if I don't understand reality, then what happens? Then I'm going to imagine that this entire awareness, which is right here, right now, lighting your minds, looking at this person, that this awareness is right inside my little mind, right? Inside my, and I'm kind of imagining it's in my mind. Okay?
Very nice drawing.
Huh?
Very nice drawing.
Yeah, Photoshop. Yeah. I love doing this. This is my hobby, just taking pictures and kind of creating symbols out of them. Yeah, so it's my hobby. Okay, now we do mention, expand your awareness. In common language, we say this, increase your awareness of environmental issues. This is absolutely fine, but it's a different kind of culture that says this. It's a different, right? So it's not like, oh, you don't talk like this. Awareness is already all expanded. The society will say words like, increase your awareness of environmental issues. So what they really mean is, add knowledge, right? Make the mind more alert about more knowledge in reference to the environmental issues. In that sense, we say raise your awareness. So if you really want to get strict, instead of saying increase your awareness of the environmental issues, rather increase your knowledge in reference to environmental issues. Become more alert to the, climate change and all of this stuff, okay? So it's okay if the society uses this word, and they do, they use the word consciousness. Are you conscious to the fact that you are sitting right now, right? Are you conscious to the fact that you're late, right? This kind of language, it's okay. The society uses this, but in Vedanta, our understanding of consciousness or awareness, the one and the same, is very different. It's not something that you can increase or decrease, it's already all pervasive, which means by definition, there's nothing you can do to consciousness because it's already maximum. It's already here in its true state, in its true natural, swarupa. Swarupa means it's, what's the word for swarupa? It's natural swarupa. Yeah, in its natural state. That's the closest word I'll say. Yeah. Okay. Any thoughts so far? Yeah. So suppose now, going back to the inquiry, suppose you say, how, because we keep on saying that awareness is unborn. But the question now comes is, how do you demonstrate that your awareness is exactly the same as my awareness, right? As Prem Buddha's awareness, as dog's awareness, as insects' awareness. How do we show this? And there's a methodology. Suppose you say that your body is Drg. So because people have this, brain and consciousness, they're one, right? Consciousness is in the brain, and brain is part of the body. Therefore, the body is Drg, okay? So look at this. So this means if consciousness is your physical body or your brain, this means as many brains, as many as consciousnesses. Okay, simple logic. So now how do we show there's only one? How do we show that that you can't say this statement that there's brains and consciousness together? Well, look at this. Suppose I say from my standpoint, okay, my body is the seer, and Prem Buddha's body is the seen. But from Prem Buddha's standpoint, his body is the seer, and my body is the seen. Now, from Julie's standpoint, both of our bodies are seen, and her body is the seer. Now, from Radhika's standpoint, all three of our bodies are seen, and her body is the seer. And she's like, my body is a seer, done. No, because the moment we go to So-Kyung, we say, all four of our bodies are seen, and her body is the seer. And she's now, I won the competition. The moment you move on to the next person, her body is also now the seen. Therefore, the body cannot be the seer, the body is the seen. So we use this analysis to show that you erase this notion that the body is a seer, because we say there's only one seer, but we just demonstrated that the body is not the seer, it is the seen. Now let's apply this to the mind. How do you demonstrate that your mind is not consciousness, my mind is not consciousness, Diderik's mind is not consciousness? How do you show that? Because now, this is what I keep on saying. The attribution era is that we put our mind into consciousness and consciousness into the mind. So they become one and the same. It becomes I. And therefore, I want to improve myself. I want to expand. I want to be bigger. Okay? I want to be immortal. This is why, because the nature of consciousness is immortality. And so this immortality gets superimposed onto the body. And therefore you have cryogenics. You freeze the individual, they actually do this. You pay $100,000 and they hold your body for a couple of decades so that one day you can get woken up and you can, they can have a cure so that you can live, so that you, the body, lives forever. And the nature of the body, which is limited, gets superimposed onto consciousness. Therefore, we say, I am small. But the I is referring to, which is all pervasive, which is without any attributes, free of attributes. And that has smallness onto it. And that has bigness onto it. And therefore, we make this mistake. The I sense, which we will talk about, the ego, becomes big. I have a big sense of I, a big sense of, the ego becomes enlightened. We'll talk about this ego. The whole text goes into analysis of the I sense, which is where the main error is. I put the consciousness in my ego, and therefore the ego becomes this, enlightened being. So we will see what it says about this. So when it comes to the mind, when you speak, how about I'll start with myself. When this person speaks, what's happening? What is an object of Drsya to you when this person speaks? Words. But words are nothing but reflections of the mind. So if I can't see your mind, but I can see your mind, how? Just open your mouth. So I can see your mind indirectly. So even if you speak, I'm still seeing your mind. Not directly, but indirectly, but it's still the mind. So when this person speaks, Andre's mind becomes an object, becomes a Drsya for you, right? Becomes an object of consciousness for you. Follow me so far? When you speak, then your mind becomes an object of consciousness, becomes a Drsya for me. When all four of us speak, then all four minds become Drsya for the rest of us. When 5 of us speak, all 5 minds become Drsya for everyone else. Therefore, the mind cannot be the Drg, the mind is Drsya, okay? Because Drg is always one. Another way that you show that consciousness cannot be two, and you cannot have two consciousnesses, is you simply ask, if consciousness were to have two, then naturally, what defines differences? What defines this from that? Attribute, perfect. Therefore, the question now comes, if there are if my consciousness is different from your consciousness, then you have to ask me the question now, okay, Andre, what attribute is your consciousness? Because to have two, immediately, the question comes, then how is it different than mine? Define it. Since you know yourself so much, you need to be able to define it. This is just a natural question. And you say, well, it is evolved. Okay, what do you mean evolved? What is evolved? But you're speaking out of mind. You're speaking out of experience. It's an evolved mind. We get that. In the presence of that mind which is evolved, and of course, evolved word is very relative. You can always have someone that's even more evolved. So that's already canceled out. Okay? It's blue. My awareness is blue. Okay, so then what? Do you experience blue all the time? No. So then how can you be blue? Because to be blue means you're blue. But you don't experience any attribute onto yourself. You don't experience anything from the last 1 year right now. Is anything stuck to you from the last 1 year? Is any of those emotions and pains and joys, is any of that stuck to you right now? Not until your memory recalls it. And so you go, yeah, it is stuck to me. But it's only because I'm having this conversation with you now. So I triggered that memory, and that has been superimposed on the Drg again, and therefore you make another attribution error. In other words, the memory came in time. But Drg is that which obtains in all 3 periods of time. It was there before I triggered that memory. It is there while the memory comes in that moment. And it is there only to accommodate a new kind of memory, a new kind of 60,000, a new kind of experience in the future.
But what if you could have a limited consciousness? So, for example, a Dietrich consciousness and Andre consciousness. Then there would, so you said you cannot have two consciousnesses. But there's only if consciousness is unlimited. But isn't that possible if you have a limited consciousness?
A limited consciousness.
Yeah.
See, the moment you say limited consciousness, that means you're defining it now. Because limitation means from here to here, right? Yeah. So now I have to say to you, so where does your consciousness begin and where does it end? And you're going to say, well, right now behind me, I'm not conscious of anything behind me. But that's not what we're talking about, because that's the range of your senses. We're not talking about how much your senses can capture. If you had senses behind you, then that too would be captured behind you. So getting back is to say I have limited consciousness and you have limited consciousness, immediately the problem comes, then define that limitation. Where does it begin and where does it end?
Well, it would be limited to this entity. You could say, just as an assumption.
Yeah, now if it's limited to your body, we just said that, then you have to say, what, your body ages, so therefore my consciousness ages. My consciousness gets wrinkles or something. So now what does consciousness that ages look like? What does that feel like? A consciousness that ages. If your consciousness were to age, you could not tell that you aged, that your body has aged, because you would be age itself. You would be going along with the changes, with the series of the changes of your body. I cannot be the body, the consciousness cannot be the body, because if consciousness were the body, then the body would never die. And the body would never be born. Because we said consciousness is unborn. And if it's the mind, then you have to tell me what exactly is the quality of your consciousness. Smart? If it's smart, then you cannot identify a dull consciousness. If it's a dull consciousness, I cannot identify a smart consciousness because they're opposing in nature. It has to be clear to distinctly identify smart, dull, sharp. That means I have to be other than dullness, other than sharpness, other than smartness. To identify something, you have to be other than that. For the eye to identify color, it has to be free of that color. Make sense? Just like an example. Were you here? I'm not sure. Right? I'm going to use this RGB example. Okay, so you're shining a white light onto, right, colors. Why can you identify those colors distinctly? Why are those RGB colors identified distinctly for RGB? Because the light that's shining is not red, is not green, is not blue. It is just pure light. Now I know you can scientifically say, well, it has the, the kind of frequency of the light. That's not the point. That means the color, the light is free of the color, and for that reason, because it's free of the color, it's able to identify the color distinctly for what it is. If the light was red, then by the time it shines onto green, could you tell that it's green? No, because you would be mixing up, you will be overlaying your attribute onto the entire world. Therefore, you could not see anything except your, right, limited, your defined consciousness. So please understand this. To say my consciousness is defined, what you're really saying is, my consciousness has an attribute. That's what limitation means.
Attribute can just be the localization, The rest is no limitation, just the localization, because it seems like that,
Of course, we'll explain why. We'll explain why, yeah.
That's the idea.
Yeah, sure. So, perfect.
For argument's sake, to get it clear.
Perfect. So we will explain exactly why it seems like consciousness is confined to one body. Perfect, and that's coming up. So you're already in tune with me. Okay. Another reason why, or how we can show that your consciousness is exactly the same as mine, is, look at this. At the beginning, I said the statement, we only do things for our own sake. Now, when someone pleases you, what are you really seeking when you pursue something? What are you really seeking when you pursue something? Like, what is the core drive behind any pursuit? What? Yeah, happiness. Now, what happens when you're happy?
Limitless.
Yeah, when you're happy, do you have this thought, I want something else in happiness? Does that thought even arise? So look at this. Every person is looking for happiness. Why? Because happiness gives me a sense of no otherness. Does anyone pursue something to what? Experience a sense of duality. Let me have happiness to feel separation. Is this the case? When you experience happiness, when you pursue anything in the world, it's so that there is no sense of otherness. In that moment, this desired object does not exist for me. I am free of all limitations in this moment. So if that is true from my standpoint, that is true from your standpoint. Do you understand the logic so far?
Yes.
So this means, what are we all seeking? If everything is drg, then we are all seeking the non-dual drg. Because you only pursue that which is your nature. You don't pursue that which opposes your nature. So if you're pursuing things to come in contact, to experientially, right, understand yourself as that without any limitation, and I'm also pursuing things that I want for that moment, that's why I call it experiential, for that moment, to experience no sense of otherness, then what does this mean? Your consciousness, your self, is exactly the same as mine. It's non-dual, mine is non-dual. Why? Because from your standpoint, you are looking for no sense of otherness, Advaita. From my standpoint, I'm looking for no sense of otherness, Advaita. From someone else's standpoint in the future, they're looking for no sense of otherness, Advaita. You see this? So this is cross-culturally true for everyone. Therefore, whatever you're seeking so that in that moment, for a moment, I am relieved from a sense of me and that. I want to relieve myself from the sense of Advaita, from duality. And if that is the case for everyone, then by definition, everyone's self is without attributes, non-dual, one Advaita, non-dual self. Okay? So there's different logics to show why consciousness is the same for all of us. Okay? This is just three. I don't want to kind of, keep on one after the other. This is enough. And then we contemplate, right? But this is the beauty of Vedanta. It provides you these prakriyas, these methods, to demonstrate that there is a unity. Why is it that we experience ourselves as two different Drgs? Okay? So we're not leaving this analysis alone. We're continuing. Exactly what you said, Diderik. Why is it that we make this innocent error that I am embodied, that I, consciousness, am embodied from this much to this much? Why is this? Because this is everyone's experience. Okay, are you following me so far? Okay, so we have to analyze this. We can't just let it go, because the whole topic of analysis is looking into your experience, not in the form of belief. Am I providing any beliefs here? Believe this, believe that, or just analyzing our experience? So why is it that there seems to be, right, two Drgs? So this is because consciousness, which we said is all pervasive, is engulfed by one single body, and another body, and another body, and another body. So now you have 5 bodies that are all engulfed or encompassed. They're encompassing consciousness. So just a little metaphor. Suppose there's space. Now look, does space have any attributes? No. But space is that which accommodates the attributes. So without space, I can't, how are you going to fit a pen, if there's no space in between? So you need a space so you can put things. So it's that which accommodates. Okay. So when you have, for example, a cup or a container, suppose it's just space, all pervading space, and suddenly this grows in space, right? So right now there's nothing, and suddenly and it grows. And now suppose we call this a jiva, right? A jiva, a living entity with a brain that's able to kind of, be conscious and, calculate what's 1 + 1 and all this other stuff, right? So now, from the standpoint of within the boundaries of this container, which we call a jiva, it seems like the space here, right, is different from the space outside. Why? Because in reference to the boundaries of this little container. But is it really different? Is the space inside really different from the outside? No. Now look at this. From the standpoint of this little space inside, when this thing moves, it seems like the space inside is moving. But is it actually moving, or is the cup moving in space? Now suppose that, suppose now, let's get a little bit clever. Suppose I cover this container, and I say, I've now stolen the space. I've stolen consciousness I've stolen all pervading consciousness just for myself. Now what is all pervading consciousness? Just like space, that which accommodates, without ever getting tainted by what it accommodates. So like space, suppose I cover it, and I'm going to hijack the space. So I go like this. Zzz. Now, the space over here has been hijacked. So this means that right now, I can't move my hand, right, in this little area, because I've stolen that which accommodates. So what I have to do now, I have to go like this and go pour the space back. And now I can again move my hand. Is this how it is? No. But from the standpoint of the cup, it seems that I, all pervading space, am moving. You understand that? Is space moving right now? No. But when the cup grows, who's moving? Now what's the I referring to? that which is seen, attributed onto the seer, onto consciousness. Therefore, it seems like I am moving, all-pervading consciousness, but what's actually moving? The cup is moving. So now you say, well, what do I do with this? Okay, but how do I convert this into an understanding? Like, what do I do with this knowledge? It's a cognitive understanding. Even though it seems like, right, I, this little container, am right now moving in all-pervasive consciousness, right now, in the very consciousness that's lighting up your minds in this moment. From my standpoint, from Andre's standpoint, hey, I'm moving. But cognitively, there's an understanding that I am illumining your mind right now. I'm looking through your eyes right now. Is this a feeling? Oh, hold on, let me just feel this. I'm all-pervading consciousness. A feeling is Drsya. And how long can you sustain a feeling for? Yeah, not so long. But what's always true? The Drg in whose presence this little container called this Andre is moving. I'm right now moving in what? In consciousness. And this consciousness is you. So you have a bunch of bodies moving in one consciousness. But it seems like we're all moving individually. Now, when this cup breaks, does the space inside merge with the outside space? Is there any real merger when this cup dies? Right, it breaks. Is there any real merger? No, because there was no separation in the first place. So the separation only seems true while the body seems alive. That's why I say there's a very intimate connection between Drg, I, and the body. This is completely normal. And this goes on for the rest of our lives. So there's no question of trying to kind of, go beyond the body, experience myself as some kind of a transcendental being, or be above everyone. There's no question of this. It's just understanding cognitively there is an intimate relationship between myself, the awareness, and this body. There is a relationship between myself and my body from her standpoint. There is a relationship between myself and my body from this standpoint. It's oneself. It's just moving in, right, all-pervading consciousness, making it seem like, right, I am moving. It's a cognitive understanding. Does this cup divide the space? When this cup gets born, does it now divide the space from the outside and the inside? No. But from the standpoint of the cup, it seems like it has divided. And this is a cognitive understanding. It seems like I, right now, all-pervading consciousness, am divided from this standpoint. I, all-pervading consciousness, am divided from this standpoint. It's a cognitive understanding. It seems like this, but it's not the case. Why is it like this? We will see when we speak about Maya, okay? So this will help us to explain a little bit more about this teaching. Okay, what else? Okay, one more thing here. So when this cup gets born, it seems like space is born. See this? Space, all-pervading space. It seems like space is born. Is it actually born? It was there all along. Cup breaks, space remains. Cup moves, space remains.
Yeah, you say space was there all along.
And right now.
Vedanta teaching is that space is the first creation before.
Yeah, space is an element. It's a subtle element. So we're not talking about, we're using a metaphor. This is a good point. It's very good, Prem Buddha. So Prem Buddha is talking about, see, I'm using space for something that is metaphorically comparable to consciousness. I'm not saying space is consciousness, but it's the closest thing that we have for consciousness. Why? Because space is that which accommodates without getting polluted by what it accommodates. So if I put dirty water here, suppose, has the space become dirty? Because if it has, that means if I move, right? If I sort of empty out this dirty water, then the space inside is now dirty, suppose. So now,
you say that space was there all along? As far as I heard within Vedanta, that space is the first creation, so it's not.
this is a metaphor. I'm not talking about right now creation of, right? I'm not going to mention the terms. This is a metaphor. We're just simply, in Vedanta, we use space to comparatively compare it to consciousness. We're not saying it is consciousness, but it's the closest thing to consciousness. It's a prakriya. Just like light. Look at this, one more example. Suppose I have my hand right now, and you can only see the light when it hits this hand. Suppose I have a black surface behind me, okay? So you don't see any light. And then you say, oh, there's no light because I'm looking at a black surface, suppose. Can you imagine this? Suppose. And now I put my hand and you say, oh, this hand has light. Does this hand have light? No, the light is coming from the all-pervasive light. Now, this hand, suppose it's dirty. Does this dirty hand contaminate the all-pervasive light that's just illumining the contents of this hand? No, it just illumines the contents of a clean hand, of a dirty hand, just like consciousness illumines the contents of Prem Buddha's mind, illumines the mind of doubt, illumines the mind of questioning, illumines the mind of, the sensations of pain, the sensations of joy. It just lights it all up. And Vedanta is saying consciousness, that which lights up this person sitting here called Prem Buddha, is I. Lights up. Lights up the person who's now shaking the head and going, I'm looking at this body from your standpoint. Look at this. From this standpoint, this body is going, But what's lighting that up? I am. Consciousness. Drg, who never gets contaminated by whatever the conditions are of the mind. The joys, free of. The pains, free of. So the next part is swayam vibhati atha anyani bhasayet. Consciousness shines by itself, and in the presence of it, everything else gets lit up. So this means nothing lights up your consciousness. You are the final illuminator of the body. You're the final illuminator of this person, illuminator of this person, illuminator of this person who's writing this down, going, this is really interesting, or whatever it is. Who's lighting this all up? The light which is self-revealing. I am. The one I that's true for all people. Lighting up the insect's mind, lighting up the dog's mind, lighting up everyone's mind. I don't understand. Is that Drsya?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I understand. Is that Drsya?
Mm-hmm.
I got it. Is that Drsya?
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it. Is that Drsya?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who I am. Is that Drsya?
Mm-hmm.
I know who I am. Is that Drsya?
Yes.
So what does Drg have anything to do with knowing or not knowing? What does Drg have anything to do with ignorance or knowledge? In the presence of I, Drg, there is a knowledgeable mind. In the presence of I, Drg, there is an ignorant mind. What does ignorance or knowledge have anything to do with Drg? In the presence of Drg, it just lights up the contents of what your mind knows or doesn't know or has ascertained or is trying to ascertain. Oh, but I've been listening to this for years. You don't understand my condition. Is that Drsya? Is that seen? I'm never going to get this. Is that seen? I don't have any clue what you're talking about. Is that seen? No matter what, Drg remains free of the state of the mind without ever getting illuminated, without ever getting contaminated by what it illumines. Therefore, do you have any track record on your account for having done wonderful things, for having done not so wonderful things? They call this karma. I've got lots of punya papam. I've got some bad deeds on my account. I've got some good deeds on my account. Who's got good and bad deeds? Yeah, but what is this us referring to? The body. The body. We said it cannot be consciousness because it is unborn. So if consciousness had the account of all of your sins and virtues, then since consciousness is one, then everyone will be enjoying the same virtues and sins simultaneously. But it's not true. Your body's sins and virtues are very different from my body's sins and virtues. Therefore, it belongs to the body and not the unborn consciousness, which happens to be you. Therefore, you have no track record of having done anything good in your life, nor done anything wise or unwise in your life. Clean, just like space. We can play really ugly music in this room. I mean, like full of, terrible words. And the moment the music ends, what happens? Does the space get kind of, now contaminated? And you can play really beautiful music in here. I mean, just to die for. Does it now define the space? I've created a very nice space. No, I can blow up a bomb here. Does it sort of like leave, space in a blow-up position or something, No, when the air cleans out, then space remains attributeless. Just like your mind, right now, you say, oh, I'm in pain. I am in pain. Is that Drsya?
Yes.
I'm so happy. So happy. Is that Drsya?
Yes.
Always clean of whatever is going on to this person. Always clean whatever is going on to this person. Is this an experience? If it was an experience, that means it is seen. Because an experience is always seen. It becomes an object of knowledge. Drsya is that which is formless. It cannot be an experience because the experience wasn't there yesterday and now suddenly I got enlightened and I'm having an experience. Drsya is that which obtains in all three periods of time and has never changed ever. It's always been the most familiar thing for you. And what's been the most familiar thing, Prem Buddha, in your life? I am. That is the final reality. Everything else, the moment you say I am this, you're now starting to qualify. I am. Qualify. Qualification always belongs to the Drsya, which comes in time. In Tattva Bodha, we define the truth as Sat Kala Traye Api Tishtati. So this means that which obtains in all three periods of time, all the time for everyone. The simple I am. I know that I am. You don't need to tell me that I am. I know that I am. Suppose right now you're listening to this and going, Andre, I heard this so many times, I don't need to hear this again. I know this. I know this very well. I've heard all of the teachers. I've heard all of the logics. I know much better than all of this. You could explain this in so many better ways. Is that Drsya? Yes. Nothing to do with self. So even if we understand this, what happens? The ego comes in and says, no, I know this. I know this stuff very well. You don't need to tell me. You see how we get tricked? Constantly superimposing Drsya onto Drg, Drsya onto Drg, pride onto awareness, arrogance onto awareness. So in other words, to understand this knowledge, nobody owns consciousness. So where's the question of going, I am liberated, you are not. I know this. Where's the question of this? Nobody owns consciousness because consciousness is the reality. There's a little problem here. It says itself shines, but everything else shines after it. Itself swayam vibhati, atha, then anyani bhasayet, then others shine after it. So we have a problem now. We have two realities. Yeah. We have awareness and we have everything else. So how to resolve this? So the way to do this is, see, so far, what have we talked about? We said that to resolve this separation, right? We have two things, Drg and Drsya. But if reality, according to the Vedas, is one, then we have to kind of look at this a little bit closer. Like, how can you have now Drg and Drsya? What is this? If there's only Drg, then how do you get rid of Drsya? How do you explain out the seen if there's only one? And the way that this is done is you have to first understand if you have two realities, then one limits the other. And that's not attractive. Because even if you're a big, suppose you were huge, your reality is huge. Even if you have one small dot that is different from you, then what's going to happen? You're going to be bothered by that which is not you. Because there's a sense of otherness. Oh, I'm not a dot. I'm not a little bacteria. I want to be that too, right? So the final reality is defined as anantam. It is infinite. It has no boundaries. So if it has no boundaries, then it means that it's only one. And yet we have Drg and Drsya. So the question is how to resolve this. And you have to understand the world is what we call the Drsya world is mithya. And we will explain what this is. And what do I mean the Drsya world? When I say Drsya world, what is the Drsya world?
All the objects.
Huh?
All the objects.
Get more intimate, please. Do not exclude your body. When I say Drsya world, what am I talking about?
Everything.
The very person who's listening to this question is the world. It's just atoms packaged together differently. The very person who's speaking is also the world, right? So the Drsya world is mithya. So what is mithya now? The teacher is mithya, the student is mithya, the scriptures is mithya, right? And everything else is Drg is satyam. So now the question is, what is this Drg, satyam and Drsya mithya? Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnameva avashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.